ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Muhammad Nabil, and we are back with another episode of Two Aliens podcast. Along with me, my good friend Numan Zulfikar is here. How are you doing, Numan?
Hey folks, how are you? Welcome to another edition of the Two Aliens podcast MMA show, and let's get straight into it. What a great card we had. What do you think, Nabil?
Definitely. I saw the fight. It was phenomenal. I mean, every single fight was exceptionally fantastic. Whatever the words you want to put in, you have to add it inside it because all the fighters gave like 100%. Every single fight was fantastic. I enjoyed every fight actually.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird in some ways, but also at the same time, it was awesome in some ways. It was weird because there was no crowd, right? So there was no attendance,
Yeah,
so you didn't really have any oohs and ahs from the crowd. I mean,
exactly.
the Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson fight, had there been a crowd there, they would have gone crazy throughout the whole 24 minutes or 25 minutes of the fight. On the plus side, you could hear what the cornermen were instructing their fighters. You could hear every single punch, every single kick, every single elbow. So that added a whole new element of nasty to the fights, in my opinion.
Dude, I'm saying there were even some scenarios, some situations where I was able to even hear the breath sounds of the fighters clearly.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, man. I mean, that Tony and Justin fight, holy shit.
Exactly.
Holy shit! I mean, we did an episode before the fights, and I predicted, like most people would have, that Tony would be winning this fight, and this would set him up with an undisputed showdown against Khabib. But Justin Gaethje surprised us all, man.
Exactly. Too. Me myself also. I was betting on Tony Ferguson, and I was thinking, this guy has a clean record of destroying all the fighters easily.
Plus
So
a
I was
12-fight
thinking-
win streak.
Exactly, yeah. 12-fight win streak is a huge record by itself. So I was thinking, okay, this guy is gonna destroy Justin. It will be like a walk in the park. He's gonna be like, okay, Khabib, come over as soon as possible. You can put the fight in, and that's it. So it will be like a test run for him, for this guy, for Tony. But it was completely opposite, Naman.
Yeah, man. I mean, see, I won't go as far as to say that it would have been a walk in the park for Tony, because Justin, listen, man, Justin is a world-class fighter. He came in with the right mindset. See, the reason why I feel Tony didn't perform as well as he could have was because, Nabil, I'm not sure if you know, but weight cuts can be really terrible for your body. Not just your body, but also your mental state, right? So when you're doing a weight cut, you're basically dehydrating yourself. Okay, so
Exactly, yeah.
that really taxes your brain as well. I mean, this has happened time and again in boxing, in MMA, in wrestling, that people who go through weight cuts, and severe weight cuts at that, they are more susceptible to health problems. And not just that, they're lethargic sometimes in the fights, and they're easy to knock out because your brain is not getting the juices, so to speak. So
Yeah.
Tony Ferguson actually had to do 2 weight cuts because his fight was originally scheduled for last month. That didn't take place. So he had already made weight by then. Okay, and then he had to do a weight cut again. So 2 weight cuts, I mean, that really takes a toll on your body. The other thing is, Tony was supposed to fight Khabib, right? Khabib is a grappler. So Tony spent all these months training for a grappler, and then in the end he has to fight a guy who by the way is also a grappler, but he doesn't grapple. Justin Gaethje is a wrestler and a very accomplished wrestler, but in the MMA game he's a striker. So now Tony had
Exactly.
to
That's why during the
adjust
fight,
his game.
One thing before we move on forward, I just want to ask you. I just want to go back that the amount of experience Tony Ferguson has of fights, as you were mentioning, 12 fight streaks, and even before that, I completely agree with you that it takes a toll on your body itself and your mind. But still, as an experienced fighter, and I don't know, he's 34 years old or 35 years old.
36.
He must have. Yeah, sorry, 36 years old. So with that amount of fighting experience, don't you think he must be prepared for that fight before already? Like, I understand, 1 month, 2 months gap or 3 months gap, you have to cut your body weight, but still, I mean, that can't be for me, I personally believe that can't be a reason for a loss. I think so. And
No, I mean, I'm not saying. See, Justin Gaethje outclassed Tony. Simple as that. But Tony could have done better. I'm not saying that these are the reasons, but many fighters, especially a guy like Anthony Rumble Johnson, who used to knock out people in the heavyweight and light heavyweight division. Okay, he got knocked out in the welterweight division by Josh Koscheck, who was never known for his knockout power, who was always a wrestler. So, weight cuts can take a toll on your body. And if you're doing 2 weight cuts, see, I completely understand your point that he is a very experienced fighter. He's been fighting for a long time. But having 2 weight cuts, I mean, that's going to drain your body no matter what. I mean, the moment the fight started, I felt that Tony looked a bit slow. He didn't look as sharp as he normally is. You see, normally what happens is Tony is able to keep a pace throughout all 5 rounds. He wasn't able to do that against Justin. One of those reasons is because Justin was basically smoking Tony throughout all 5 rounds. One of the things Justin did was, if you saw the fight, Justin's coach said, take 10% power off your punches and just focus on technique. And he immediately made the switch. It was like the coach said it and he immediately made the switch.
Exactly, I remember, during the break. Yeah, during the break he said that. One more thing I want to discuss is that, the direct blows which Tony Ferguson was taking repeatedly. Why wasn't he dodging them? Was he overconfident? Like, okay, like the previous fights, I'm gonna ignore this guy as well. I'm gonna ignore the punches. I have a strong chin or something, or what? I have done this before so many times, so I can bear this also, the pain. So I believe one of the reasons for his downfall is also the blows which he constantly received in every single round.
I felt this wasn't the normal Tony that we're used to. Tony normally he does take a lot of hits. Okay, that's something we have come to you. That's something that you have to realize. When you're watching a Tony Ferguson fight, is that he gets hit, but he got hit way too many times in this fight. And again, I felt the reason was he was slow. His reaction time was slow. Some of the punches he was throwing were a bit off pace. Okay, he really landed a very good uppercut on the end of the second round, and Justin's lights were out, but it was the end of the round, so that gave Justin time to recover. But again, I'm not taking anything off Justin's case. I think Justin is a very good fighter. I think he deserved that victory. I think he deserves to fight Khabib. But speaking fairly, speaking medically, I don't think Tony was as sharp as he is normally in a fight.
For me, okay, one more thing I wanted to, which I noticed was that I think it was the second last round, or maybe the last round, I guess, where Justin threw a punch and it hit on the right side of his temporal, the skull region on the right side above his ear, I think. So that was the blow which I think made him wobbly, like lose his balance, and afterwards that was like his downfall. From there onwards, he kept on losing his concentration. Okay, before that he was getting punched constantly, but like that portion of his side of the skull, like the place above the ears, is like their skin is very less, and if you hit that constantly, you lose your balance, you lose your equilibrium. So that's the worst place to get hit. And as you yourself also are mentioning, Naman, that even though if you are used to those punches, but in my opinion, every fighter has his own strength, and Justin proved that much. Like the amount of punches he was throwing, and with the strength he was throwing that punches, those were brutal. Plus the timing, the accuracy with which he was throwing those punches was phenomenal. Every blow in the last round was hitting perfectly on Tony.
Yeah, man. See, Justin hits like a truck, but you have to give props to Tony. If there was any other fighter, they would have been dead by the second round. But Tony was alive till the end of the 5th round. That's when the referee. That's when Herb Dean was like, okay, just stop it. I've seen enough. And I think that was a good stoppage. In my humble opinion, I think that was a good stoppage because who knows, man? Maybe if Justin hit him with another blow, that would have probably ended the man's career.
Exactly. It is possible.
Because Tony looked completely out of his element. Do I think Tony is going to make a comeback? I have a feeling he might, but I don't know. Considering the amount of punishment he took in this fight and his age. One thing I do know for sure is Tony versus Khabib not happening.
Yeah, which is disappointing to hear, actually, Numan.
Yeah, which is disappointing to hear. Had Tony won this fight, they would have been scheduled to fight for a 6th time.
Oh, 6th time. Woo,
that was our main event. Justin Gaethje, well deserved. Congrats on the interim title. Justin Gaethje basically threw the interim title. He's like, I don't want this belt. This is fake, and I like that attitude, man. Because no, to be very honest, interim titles are a joke now.
Come on, at least you got something. Like, I mean,
No, it's a joke because he knows Tony Ferguson won the interim title, and it didn't mean jack shit because he got stripped of it while doing a press event for UFC. Then Dustin Poirier won the interim title. Okay, he went on to face Khabib. Dustin Poirier knew he wasn't really a champion. He faced Khabib, and then Khabib smoked him up.
you can say that okay, but I think Dustin tried his best. I mean, like in second round, I think it was against Khabib that he came kind of close.
He had one moment, man. Come on, what are you talking about, Nabil?
I mean,
one
even
moment
that-
one moment in a whole match. You can't say that,
dude, even that one moment can make a difference because you're fighting against.
But it didn't make a difference. That's what we're talking about. It didn't make a difference. He's not a champion. If it did make a difference, he would be the champion. It didn't make any difference whatsoever.
I completely agree with you, but fighting against Dagestani warrior, I mean the complete package, Khabib, it's very very hard, man. I completely, even if you're going against throwing a punch against him is very hard now, but you gotta give props to that guy for.
I actually really like Dustin Poirier, but to say that he had a good performance against Khabib, I would not say that. To be very honest. People say that Al Iaquinta had a good performance against Khabib. Al Iaquinta was a last-minute replacement for Tony, first of all. And second of all, Al Iaquinta lost all 5 rounds. So how is that a good performance if you lose all 5 rounds?
Exactly, yeah. Okay, that is wrong. Yeah, obviously, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, people say that he didn't get mauled as most other fighters do. I mean, that's the standard where we're setting Khabib's opponents. Okay, so we're not basing them off how good they perform against Khabib. We're basing them off how much damage Khabib did to them.
Well, okay, so moving on. Just one last thing. What do you think about the chances of Justin fighting against Khabib? I mean,
yeah, Justin is definitely going to fight against Khabib. Do I think Justin has what it takes to beat Khabib? I don't know. Justin is a very good fighter. He has excellent striking. He has a wrestling background, so he might be able to defend some of those takedowns. But listen, man, Khabib is a train.
Exactly, yeah.
And no human can stop a train.
Yeah, unless you bring Bob the train itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only person who could stop Khabib at this time would be Khabib.
Justin's chances are, if he in the first few rounds, if he blows the punches perfectly and accurately, and if it hits perfectly, he's golden. He has the chance then to win the round. But if it keeps on delaying more and more, you will see that Khabib
then it's inevitable.
Yeah, Khabib will win again.
It's quite possible that Khabib wins in the first round as well. I mean, one of the things that Khabib does different than Tony is avoid getting hit. So if you look at Khabib in most of his post-fight interviews, it looks like the guy didn't even have a fight. Right? Yeah. So even if he's fighting against strikers, he looks completely normal. He doesn't look like he's having any swellings or any injuries anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, so that's something that Khabib does very well. I mean, we talk about how good his offense is, but people really talk about how good his defense is, man. How he's able to avoid getting hit how he's been able to avoid getting hit for most of his career. So that's really commendable. That's the fight to look out for. I believe this fight would be scheduled sometime in September, October of this year. We'll see how it pans out. I mean, the world we're living in right now, we have to take everything one day at a time. Anyway, so the co-main event of the evening, it was Triple C Henry Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz. Triple C won by the end of the second round via TKO, knees and punches. Dominic Cruz felt that, it was a wrong stoppage. What do you think, Nabil?
I don't know. I just felt like maybe DC is just whining about it. I mean, like, Henry deserves it. There were some moments, DC, like Dominic threw some good punches, but on the long run, I believe Henry he deserves the fight. He deserves it to win the chance. There was even an issue where Cruz was saying after the match that he felt the referee smelled like cigarettes and alcohol. But I don't know, man. I just felt like you gotta accept your defeat. I mean, you had a good chance. You threw some good punches, but at the end, I mean, like, you lost. You gotta accept the fact. Then you can't deny that. And I'm not taking Henry's side on this one. I'm not a Triple C, but Triple C deserves that fight, man.
See, I'll give you my opinion. I feel that it was the right stoppage. Some Dominic Cruz was saying, "How can I be knocked down when I'm getting back up?" Right, and he was actually getting up. If you saw the highlights, once Cejudo knocked him down, and he started a barrage of punches. Slowly but surely, Dominic was getting up, but that's when the referee stopped the fight. Why I feel it was a good stoppage is because, come on, man, you got 11 unanswered blows to your head. What else is the referee going to do? 11. I mean, the referee has, and those were bombs, man. Those weren't like touch and go strikes. Those were like actual bombs. So how can you say that you felt that it was a wrong stoppage? I mean, I understand he's being a whiny little prick about it, but truth of the matter is, Henry Cejudo, whether you like him or not, definitely one of the best MMA fighters of all time.
Yeah, he is, and he once again I would say that it's a close call. It's a close call. Okay, there is a moment. I believe if you're standing up, you feel like you're not losing your balance and you have a chance. Okay, maybe even though I'm taking blows on the head or on the body, I believe if I can stand up and fight again, and you are seeing me, I'm standing up again, then maybe I have a fair chance. I should be given a chance to fight. But yeah, as you are saying, 11 punches non-stop on the head. I think it's better to stop the fight before someone just passes out on the octagon ring.
Yeah. Henry Cejudo right after the fight said that he would like to retire from MMA, so he is relinquishing his title for the bantamweight. He also relinquished his flyweight title as well, the 125 division title. What are your thoughts on that?
I think he's maybe it's a possibility that he's done from UFC, but I think I heard his coach was saying that he's now going to focus on wrestling, and he might be trying out again in the USA team for the Olympics.
Oh really? That would be surprising because he's 33 years old now.
Yeah, he is actually old now. But I think.
But if anyone can do it, I think Cejudo could do it.
Yeah, me myself also. I think he still has it in him.
Anyway, I mean, if he is retiring, we would like to wish Henry Cejudo the best for what he has planned for his next stage of his life. Know what he would be doing. I mean, if you ask me personally, I think Henry Cejudo could be doing this to get a better deal out of UFC. But I don't know. Dana White said in the post-fight press conference that Henry had been discussing with the UFC about this for quite some time, so maybe he does want to retire.
Anyways, guys, moving on to the next fight, the heavyweight division fight of Francis Ngannou versus.
Oh my God!
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God, man! If you didn't see this fight, I mean, you have to watch the whole 20 seconds of this fight.
You haven't seen anything then. You haven't seen
anything in life. Okay, first of all, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, by the way undefeated at the time, was talking a lot of smack, and he was saying that Francis Ngannou doesn't have what it takes to fight a real fighter like him and all that, blah blah blah. Then Francis came in with a bad mood, and the last thing you want to do in this world or in the afterlife or in the nether realm is find Francis in a bad mood. Exactly. So the fight started, and just after 10 seconds, I mean, you have to see it, man. I mean, the haymakers that Francis Ngannou threw, had there been a normal person, not a heavyweight, he would have probably been dead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm telling you, man, this was a really
brutal
fight. Yeah, that's the right word.
This was some Mortal Kombat shit, man.
It's like, I don't know, man. I feel so sorry for Jairzinho. I mean, this guy. Okay, I was rooting for him. Maybe I was thinking he would last at least like 2 rounds, But as you mentioned,
I was thinking he might last. He might last 1 round, and the next round he'll probably get knocked out. But I didn't expect this type of domination right out of the gate.
Yeah. So Numan you remember, you told me one thing that the fight was so short, like the announcement, the name details, everything was longer than the fight actually.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Buffer took more time in the octagon than both of these guys did.
Exactly, yeah. I'm looking at the time now, and it's maximum
20 seconds, but
exactly 20 seconds. It's nothing. I mean, less than half a minute fight.
Yeah, and Francis Ngannou threw those wild punches. He was like, I'll just fuck this guy up. So he wasn't really throwing any calculated strikes. So
Hmm.
if you saw those punches, his face was just up and he was just swinging it like a bear.
Exactly. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
just like he was. I don't know, but I feel like maybe he was just trying to get that one punch. If he hits him, bam, it's gonna fall down. He had his belief in him, so he was just throwing random punches, and maybe he was thinking, okay, I'm like, if it hits him, it's good. If it doesn't, I will keep on throwing more punches on him. But yeah, Numan, this fight was crazy. I mean, I felt sorry for Jairzinho because I don't know, it takes weeks to prepare for this fight, and then you just don't even last like half a minute, which is embarrassing and then sad at the same time.
Yeah, I felt sorry for him. I mean, yeah, I really did felt sorry for him as well. Even Francis did you see right after he killed him, right after he murdered him, he was just standing next to him like he was like he was feeling sad. Oh my God, I just smoked this guy.
Yeah, it was like as if I don't know, it felt like as if Francis Ngannou, a professional UFC fighter, went to a school and he hit some kid over there, and then afterwards, hitting the kid, he just felt like, man, I should not have fought this kid. That's how I felt like. It's it was. You can't compare this fight. Like it's
Yeah.
as if like a professional fighter is fighting against an amateur. I know it's
Yeah,
it's a
I mean,
strong.
I don't know how you go from here, man. See, DC and Stipe are supposed to close their trilogy while Francis has to wait. I don't know. I mean, he's the top guy after DC and Stipe. So who do you give him? Do you make him wait, or do you feed him another one of these guys? I don't know.
Nah, for me, I think yeah, he deserves a fight against Daniel Cormier or Stipe. He does, I think so. But Daniel Cormier, if you listen to it during the fight, after the fight, he was saying that even he felt shocked at the amount of punches thrown at Jairzinho by Francis, and he
It
himself
wasn't the
was.
amount. It was the power with which those punches were thrown. I mean, there were like four, maybe five punches, but man, all of them hit like bricks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For me, as I was saying, it's gonna be like if DC goes against Francis. Oh my God, I'll be even though DC has a long history of UFC fights, but it's gonna be a close call. I mean, Francis is brutal, man. He's like a bulldozer. He's gonna if he gets the chance, if he gets the one hit, DC will be down on the floor. So, and if you compare him with Stipe, it's gonna be a good fight, a really good fight. Stipe is also in my Stipe, sorry.
Stipe and Francis actually did fight.
Oh, they did. I'm sorry, my bad.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
And
Stipe smoked him. Stipe smoked him throughout all the rounds, and Francis basically had no answer for Stipe.
hmm,
So I mean, I think Francis Ngannou is one of the top heavyweights. Is he better than DC or Stipe? We don't know. Francis has improved since his last fight with Stipe. So I mean, it's a matter of when they fight. Anyway, so the next fight was, I mean, the fight before that was Calvin Kattar versus Jeremy Stephens. Jeremy Stephens weighed in a little overweight for his fight, and he did lose to Calvin Kattar via TKO and punches in the second round. Puts Calvin Kattar in a very good spot. I think probably 2 or 3 fights away from a title shot, in my opinion. Fight before that was Greg Hardy versus Jorgen De Castro. Jorgen De Castro was starching Greg Hardy's leg in the first round.
yeah.
He made an adjustment from the second round, and beyond that, it was all Greg Hardy. So, congrats to Greg Hardy on the win. In the prelims, I think the prelims had some really good fights. I think you would agree as well, Nabil. Anthony Pettis defeated Donald Cerrone
No,
by a unanimous decision, which, I mean, I feel it was a robbery. What do you think? Even Pettis felt that it was a robbery right after the races, and he was like, "Shit, man, I'll take it." Like,
yeah,
even he was shocked. Oh, I won. Okay, wow. Okay,
exactly.
I'll take the win.
That's a controversial decision, first of all, and the reason for me also why I believe that is a controversial because I think it was round 2, maybe round 3, I guess, where Donald Cerrone complained about the eye poke. He wasn't like he could not fight during that time. So and then it was a close call because Donald took the cowboy did some good takedowns as well, and I feel it was surprising for me to see Donald lose actually.
I completely agree. See, here's the thing, man. If Anthony Pettis won by a split decision, I'd be like, okay. I mean, I had Donald winning, but I can see that. But when they said unanimous decision, I'm like, okay, that's Donald. Then they raised Anthony Pettis' hand. I'm like, what? How come? So
Yeah.
I was completely baffled. How can he win by unanimous decision when even the fighter who's winning, he himself was completely completely taken aback.
Yeah. They
So
were.
again, I mean, Donald. Here's this thing I've noticed about Donald in his past few fights is that his eye swells up really quickly. That happened with the Tony fight. That happened, I believe, with the Conor fight as well. That happened in this fight as well. So I think that's something he needs to get checked up. Fight before that, we had a heavyweight showdown. Alexei Oleinik defeated the returning Fabricio Verdum. Alexei Oleinik won by a split decision. I had him winning by a unanimous decision, but I can see. I mean, I don't dispute the decision at all.
Yeah.
Fight before that, Carla Esparza defeated Michelle Watterson by split decision. Again, this fight I felt was.
No, it's a close call. It's a close call for me. I think so. Yeah. I mean,
I actually had Michelle Watterson winning this fight.
Yeah.
And when one of the judges, when they said 30-27 Carla Esparza, I'm like, what are you smoking, man?
Yeah.
Like, how can you say 30-27 Carla when the fight was so close?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, okay, there were a few punches, but I mean, the moments where I felt, I think, in my opinion, was round 1 and round 3 was, it goes to Michelle Watterson, I believe. This is my thought on the matter.
I completely agree with you here. Carla Esparza, I think she took the second round, but I don't think she took the second round by a landslide margin, It was still a close round. All 3 rounds were close. In my opinion, 1 and 3 go to Michelle. The second round goes to Carla.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this was... I was like, okay, fine, split decision, no problem, but 30-27, that makes absolutely no sense at all.
Exactly.
Michelle Watterson, on the other hand, looked quite shocked that she was like, wow, I thought I won this fight.
Yeah.
And then she didn't. And now, she's close to 34 years old. She's a mother. I don't know, I mean, how much mileage she has left.
Maybe I think one more fight or 2 fights maximum, I guess. That's it.
I don't know. I mean, maybe this was probably her best chance to, make a claim at the strawweight division, but judges felt otherwise. So, what can you say, man?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's happening nowadays. You have to. Most of the fighters, they have to keep this in mind that the judges now are either stupid or they come from a background of no knowledge about the sport.
How come?
I mean, I personally
don't they have those experienced retired or referees? I mean, like fighters who can become a referee, or maybe you can, or you can.
That's how it should be, right? But
Yeah.
that's not the case. The judges are appointed by the athletic commissions, and they can come from any background.
Oh, okay.
So you could probably have a judge scoring a fight who
was a boxing referee?
who has never trained any martial arts in his whole life.
Are you freaking serious? So how is Dana White appointing these guys, or who's appointing these guys?
Dana White actually is not appointing these guys. These are appointed by the athletic commission.
Oh, okay. So they're like
Same, just like the referee. So, for example, a referee like Herb Dean. Herb Dean is not employed by the UFC. Herb Dean is a private contractor for the UFC. So basically, what happens is when, let's say, when a UFC event is happening, the athletic commission will appoint the referees. The athletic commission will appoint the judges.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so these are all coming from the athletic commission. If Dana White had a say in it, Mario Yamasaki and I don't remember the other guy's name, Steve Mazzagatti. These 2 guys would have been out of their jobs a very long time ago. Anyway, so yeah, covering the 3 remaining fights. Vincente Luque defeated Nico Price. This was a good fight in my opinion. Definitely worth watching. Had Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson not fought, this would have probably been a contender for fight of the night.
Oh,
Then in the early prelims, you had Bryce Mitchell defeating Charles Rosa, unanimous decision, and then we had Ryan Spann defeating Sam Alvey.
Mr. Smiley.
Beautiful Sam Alvey. That was a beautiful fight. That it's worth watching.
And in the end, just
Anyway, overall,
in the end, I just want to say, what happens to Ronald Souza because his fight got cancelled?
oh yes, we have to discuss about that. By the way, Ronaldo Jacare Souza was supposed to fight Uriah Hall, and that fight didn't take place because Ronaldo and two of his cornermen, they tested positive for the coronavirus.
Yeah.
So there was a real scare there, and every fighter got tested, and thankfully Ronaldo and his crew were the only ones who were who tested positive for it.
Yeah.
So the fight was obviously cancelled, and Dana White has promised that Dana White has promised a purse for both Ronaldo as well as Uriah Hall because they did make it to the event, and
so
I mean,
so you're saying that
what happened was
so you're saying that it's like a postponed fight. It will happen again in the future.
I'm not sure if this fight will happen again, but they did get the purse for it.
Oh, okay.
So they are getting paid for the fight.
Oh,
so for showing up basically.
Okay, not bad. At least, okay, you got the money at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for both of the guys. See, man, they went through the whole camp. They took the time out. They traveled all the way to Florida. Okay, they made weight. I mean, the least that UFC could do here is pay them.
Yeah.
And they're doing that, so that's a very good thing.
That's appreciable from Dana White, actually. I have to say.
Yeah. There's actually some news in the media circulating that UFC has banned that UFC basically has a clause in the new contracts for all the fighters, all the staff, that if they criticize the UFC for their COVID-19 measures, then then basically all the money they're supposed to get from the fight will be kept by the UFC.
What the hell? Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, if they choose to criticize the coronavirus safety measures that the UFC has taken.
Or, by the way, I want to add one more thing with this, which you are mentioning about Dana White. Did you hear about the news of Dana White was complaining against Stipe because he was telling him that you have to get involved in the next fights whenever I schedule you up against someone, and Stipe was like, I have this coronavirus issue is going on, so it's not safe to fight. But he was like, if you are under the UFC contract, you have to fight. Did you hear about that news?
I didn't, but it's crazy for Dana White to think that that everyone would be okay fighting in the coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, it's not safe. I mean, if what like
and it's pretty bad in the US, man. US is the new epicenter of the coronavirus, right? So
exactly.
Why, if a fighter doesn't want to fight, I mean, you should honor their decision. Why are you forcing them to fight?
Exactly, you can't do that. And he was, I think, if he doesn't fight, then the belt, I don't know. I could be wrong, but they could take away his belt or something, and the next thing,
I don't think they would necessarily strip him. But what they could do is they could have, in that case, they could have DC fight Francis Ngannou for the interim championship.
Oh, okay, got it. Anyways, Naman, let's move on to the next coming fight, which is being held tomorrow. Mr. Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so we have a fight night. Anthony Smith versus Teixeira. Not a bad card in my opinion. There are some good fights in there. Carl Robson, middleweight showdown between Carl Robson and Marvin Vittori. I think that's a good fight. Light heavyweight showdown between OSP and Ion Kohetebla. I'm completely butchering that name. I apologize. Alan Patrick and Frank Camacho. I think that's another good fight in the card. Andrew Sanchez and Zach Cummings. That's another middleweight showdown to look out for. Evan Dunham and Michael Johnson. These are two of the OGs of the UFC, so they're also on this card.
Got it. And what about the
So I mean,
what about
overall, I feel it's a good card.
ladies' fight? And I think Sarah Moros is also fighting against Jara Eubanks.
I think no man. I think there are only two. Mackenzie Dern is fighting Hannah Cyphers. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name. Mackenzie Dern is, by the way, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu icon.
Mm.
Yeah, and she is fighting after quite a long layoff. So let's see how that fight goes. If you don't know Mackenzie Dern, I'll be posting a video in the description below of how her accent evolved from perfect American, perfect Californian American to Brazilian over the period of 5-6 years, which is very funny.
Why did she stay in Brazil or what?
I mean, she always spent half her time between Brazil and the US, but you know she's an American. She was born in the US. Yeah, her father is actually a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu legend.
Ah, okay. If you're talking about the language, I guess okay, maybe like as I lived in China, so sometimes there are some situations where you have to speak in basic English, and if you keep on doing like that, it becomes a habit, and when you go back.
No, I mean one of the craziest things that happened. I believe it happened in her last fight. See, she speaks perfect English. Okay.
Mm.
She's an American. I mean, she is an American. She speaks American English.
Mm.
But over time, her accent evolved. I think she did it purposely. Maybe she did that to be part of the Brazilian culture, or to be more accepted by the Brazilian people. I don't know. I don't know the reason behind that. But one of the craziest things she did was in her last fight.
Yeah.
She actually brought a freaking translator with her, and I was like, "What the hell is going on, man?" Even Joe Rogan was shocked.
Okay,
He's like, this lady speaks perfect English. Why does she have a translator with her?
What the hell? Okay, I'm also shocked myself. Like, yeah, if you're born in America, you spend your time in America, you speak English fluently, then why do you need it? Is she okay? If you bring a translator,
She speaks English. She speaks English as her first language.
Exactly. Yeah, so
English is her first language.
Exactly.
And then she's bringing a translator. I'm like, what is this? What is this, man? What world are we living in?
Or is she camera shy? I mean, like, is she like those situations where you see people, they lose their words when they speak in front of the camera? So maybe she was thinking, okay, if I win the fight, this is what you have to say for me.
See, if you lose your words, you lose your words in both languages, right? Why do you have a guy? See, here's the thing, man. We both speak English, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, why would you bring a translator? Okay, hearing me say something when you know exactly what I'm saying.
Oh,
And
okay.
they're translating it into a different language, and then you speak in that language, even though you know what you have to say, and then the translator is translating that. I mean, I feel it's stupid beyond belief.
Exactly. If I was in place of Joe Rogan, I would be surprised myself. Yeah, this is shocking for me to hear. Let's see what happens in the upcoming fight. Will she bring the translator or not? And yeah, one last thing I want to also add that in general, hats off to UFC organization, hats off to Dana White as well for organizing this event and proving everyone else.
Indeed.
Proving everyone else that you can held an organization, held an event even during the time of this pandemic issue. And his team, be the ground staff to the lighting crew, everyone, hats off to them, salute to them for organizing a fantastic night for everyone, for us. And hopefully this thing proves something for everyone, for other sports as well, like NFL, NHL, and basketball, that you can also do this thing if you follow the instructions or the measures. And hopefully in the future all the sports resume, they come back, and yeah, we get to witness some good things all around the world. And okay, Numan, moving on, what are your thoughts and predictions about this upcoming fight tomorrow?
Well, first of all, I would like to apologize to our listeners. I made a mistake. I was actually looking at the old UFC Fight Night card between Smith and Teixeira. I wasn't looking at the current one. So this was supposed to be scheduled for an earlier date. This was supposed to be scheduled on April 24th. And it was a different fight card. That didn't take place, obviously. So we have a different fight card now. I'll go through the whole fight card again. So we have Chase Sherman fighting Isaac Villanova. Don't know both of those guys, so One of them has a Wikipedia page, so I'll go with the one who has the Wikipedia page. Okay, I'll be honest here, man. I mean, I've been following MMA for a long time, but I don't know all the fighters. Let's talk about the women's bantamweight fight. Saraya Eubanks versus Sarah Moraes. I feel Eubanks has the edge here, but that fight could go either way. Lightweight showdown between Michael Johnson and Thiago Moises. I think Michael Johnson takes this one again because I know who Michael Johnson is. Heavyweight showdown between Andrei Arlovsky and Felipe Lins.
Don't tell me you know them also.
Andrei Arlovsky is, by the way, Andrei Arlovsky is, by the way, one of the original heavyweight champions of the UFC. He used to be a champion way back in the day.
The OGs, huh?
Yeah, he's one of the OGs, and he is fighting he's actually fighting a debuting Felipe Lins. I'm biased, so I'll pick Andrei Arlovsky, but I don't know how much mileage he has left in him, so we'll have to see how the fight goes.
Going with the experience then.
Okay, we have a catchweight bout between Carl Robertson and Marvin Vettori. That fight has surprisingly stayed on the card. We have a bantamweight bout between Ricky Simon and Ray Borg.
Ray Borg.
I'll probably go with Ray Borg. Ray Borg, one of the best names in the UFC, in my opinion. And I really like his his fighting style. So
cool. Okay, I'm okay. I'm agreeing with you on that. And
then you have Dan Ige versus Edson Barboza. Man, Edson Barboza has had a few tough fights. I feel this could be he stepped down to featherweight, so I feel this could be his chance to bounce back, because I believe he lost the last two fights. He lost the fight against Justin Gaethje, that was back in March. Then he lost the fight against Paul Felder in UFC 242, which you attended, by the way. Yeah.
And what about the next one, like on Sunday, 17th May, Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris?
Yeah, Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris. That's another good card we have lined up for Alistair Overeem. Walt Harris, by the way, he lost his daughter was kidnapped a few months ago, and then it was found out by the police that his daughter was actually murdered. So I mean, prayers go out to his family, and we hope he's in the right state of mind. Alistair Overeem, Walt Harris. I feel Alistair Overeem takes this one. I could be wrong, considering that Alistair has had he hasn't been as successful as he was outside of the UFC. So
for me, I think,
and he's also,
for me recently, I just feel like as if Alistair Overeem is being used as a punching bag for other fighters.
Yeah, that could be true.
Because the way he was brutally destroyed in the last, previous fights.
Just one thing, the fight tomorrow, the main event is between Anthony Smith and Glover Teixeira. So that's the main event. Both of them have lost to John Jones. Anthony Smith, last fight he had was against Alexander Gustafsson. He won via submission. I think it was a rear naked choke.
Okay.
And after that fight, Gustafsson retired. So both of these guys, they're the light heavyweight challengers. They're planning to make a comeback. I would like Anthony Smith to win, but you can't count Glover Teixeira out. So anyway, that's the fight card for tomorrow. The fight card for Sunday. Again, the main event is Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris. And the other fights we'll be discussing in detail once we do a post-match analysis of UFC Fight Night on ESPN, Smith versus Teixeira. Okay, this rounds up all the fights. What do you think, Nabil? I think we've covered pretty much everything in this episode of the podcast.
Yep, and once again, I'm hoping the next fights which gonna be good also. We're gonna enjoy. And guys, that's it for now from my side also as well. Take care of yourself, guys. Be safe. And Numan, any last words you have?
Thanks, Nabil. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, you can always give it a thumbs down. If you have anything to say, if you have any fight predictions, please mention them in the comment section. Please subscribe to our channel, and that's it for today. We're also available on iTunes. We're also available on Google Podcasts. So we're basically available everywhere. You can listen to us on YouTube. You can listen to us through a podcast app, whether you're driving, whether you're working. So yeah, so that's it for now. Until we see you next time, probably in a few days, we'll be covering the post fight. And that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in, and
Goodbye, folks. Bye bye.